Okay, in this video, I would like to go through some common misconceptions in trigonometry. Number one is the difference between inverse of trig functions and inverse functions of trig functions. So what is inverse of trig functions? Um, so if you have sine of x, so y equals sine of x, the inverse of this trig function is nothing more than this one, y equals to, of course this y is not the same as this y, sine of x all to power of -1. Well, that's equal to 1 over sine of x. As you know from basic indicio laws, x to power of -n is given by 1 over x to power of n. So if you have x to power of -1, that's equal to 1 over x to power of 1, but x to power of 1 is just x. So this is the inverse of the trig functions y equals sine of x. And it's given by 1 over sine of x, as you saw before. And this is commonly known as cosec function, cosec of x. So for example, if you have if x is equal to pi over 2, or pi over, let's say 6 actually, pi over 6. Pi over 6 is the same thing as 30 degrees in degrees. So if you plug that in here, so either pi on 6 if your calculator is in radians, or 30 if your calculator is in degrees, then you get y equals to sine of pi over 6. I'm doing it radians. That's going to be half. So if you use your calculator, you get it as half. Now, what then is the inverse of this one, this sine of pi over 6? Well, the answer is 2. Just take a look. So y equals to cosec of pi over 6. So that's, I'm just plugging in the same number, same angle, into the cosec function, but we know that this is the same as 1 over sine of pi over 6, and this is also the same as sine of pi over 6 to power of -1. Well, this one is nothing more than just half to power of -1, and this is just 2. Well, if you just put half here instead of a sine pi and 6, because sine pi and 6 is half 1 over, you know that 1 over 1 over 2 is equal to 2. So that's why it's 2, okay? All right, so so what's the difference between this one, the inverse of trig functions, and inverse functions of trig functions? First of all, you need to understand this thing, okay? So if f of x, okay, I'm going to choose a different pen. If f of x is equal to x squared, what is the inverse function of x? Well, the answer is square root x. All you have to do is just if you let f of x is equal to y, and this is x squared, and you take square root of this on both sides, you get square root of y equals to the x. Of course, there's a plus and minus, but we're only taking the positive value, and then all you have to do is swap x and y so that it becomes square root of x is equal to y, and that is the inverse function. And the symbol for inverse function is f to the power of -1. Notice the difference between f to the power of -1x, which is equal to square root x, and then f of x to the power of -1, which is nothing more than just 1 over x squared. Okay, so likewise, this is the inverse of trig functions. This is like the inverse of trig functions, and this is like the inverse functions of trig functions. So what is the inverse function of the sine of x? Well, the answer is y equals to well, which is equal to actually f of inverse x is equal to sine to the power of -1 and then x. Okay, so what we plug in into this one is not the angle anymore. Oh, this is also known as arc sine of x. So what we plug into the x right here and right here is not the angles anymore, but the ratios. So rather, if you plug in half here, what you get out is 30 degrees or pi on 6. Okay, you can verify that using your calculator. Okay, another misconception is the difference between sine of x square and sine square of x and sine of x all squared. Well, in fact, there's no difference between this one right here and this one right here. Okay, so sine square x is the same thing as sine x squared. So, for example, if you have sine of x, let's say sine of 30 square, what is that? This is the same thing as sine of 900. So let's have a look. So I'm going to bring my calculator in, and I'm going to put my calculator into the degree mode. So that's in radian at the moment. Put that in degrees. I'm going to do sine of 900. So because 30 squared is 900, I'm going to go for 900, and that is 0. So that is 0. Okay. Now, what is sine of, let's talk about this one right here, sine of 30 all squared. Okay. Well, that's equal to just half square, because we saw in the previous slide that sine 30 is equal to half, and half square is quarter, so 1 on 4. So there's a huge difference. They're totally different things. So this one is the angle square first, and then you plug that squared angle into the sine, and then you get your corresponding ratio, and in this case it was 0. Sine of 30 all squared is you evaluate the sine of 30 first, for which you get half as your ratio, and you square that and you get quarter. Of course, half square is quarter. But what is this thing, sine square x? Well, this is the same thing as the sine x all squared. Okay. Well, the reason why we use this symbol rather than this symbol over here is because of efficiency. Okay. So why? Of course, if you do sine x square, it is pretty clear that the square is applied to the sine. Okay. But when we adopt this symbol right here, we actually need to put these brackets, okay, to protect this x from being squared alone. So instead of placing these two brackets and placing a square there, why not put the 2 just prior the x to eliminate the confusion? So this is a lot more efficient. So the only reason why we use this symbol in most textbooks is because of efficiency. We rather prefer to save time not writing those brackets, but just put 2 there straight away. So this essentially is the same thing as this one. But most calculators does not have would not allow you to put square just above sine. So if you have a look at this calculator, this doesn't allow you to do that. So if you actually do sine and then you put square there, and then if I do 30, what would I get? Enter. Well, that's syntax error. So it doesn't actually allow it. So your calculators most calculators will only allow you to compute this this way. So you have to do bracket and then sine of 30, and then close the bracket and square. So that gives us 0.25, which is 1 on 4. Okay, that's it.